the 22nd day of September in the year of our Lord, 1862, a proclamation was issued by the President of the United States, containing among other things the following to wit, that on the first day of January in the year of our Lord, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. And the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons, or any of them in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom. And this is celebration of Juneteenth. It became law and illegal to hold slaves as of January 1st, 1863, but it still took another 2 years for these fools in Texas to set free over 200,000 confiscated, repressed people in the United States. Well, the war was still raging, so why would they pay attention to it since it was the Republic of Texas? And then we would go probably another 200 years before we would even recognize and make some type of recognition of the civil rights that you still can't kill, can't hang, can't brutalize, are not allowed to keep people out of gainful employment just because of the color of their skin. We're still having these conversations 200 years later. And then this day, I wonder what President Lincoln would have thought of all of this. This kept and perpetuated a war, but nobody listened to them. They still went about their business, enacting their Jim Crow laws, marginalizing and disfranchising for years. What would he think? And that's why I bring you to this special episode of TNFro is reading, because as I've read in that Emancipation Proclamation, I will also discuss the ramifications. My friend and mine, Lawrence, will discuss the importance of the date, why we had to talk, and just to get a handle on everything that's actually happening in the United States. Stay tuned. I know you'll enjoy and be edified by this episode. On this computer. So that's one of the good things about me. What this I actually have, it's one of Dell's the kind of hacker gamer computers. I bought it to get to here after I got a bonus. Having a job that you actually halfway like, and I do like what I do, and they keep trying to figure out ways to give me money. This was one of my bonus purchases. So there you go.
And that's a good thing.
And that is.
It says really we value you.
And
it says we value you.
It still is hard for me to believe them, because I still give them the side eye, because I'm like, okay, so what else are y'all going to ask me to do? And when that's the other shoe going to fall, that's because I'm a cynic. And that's how I have to roll. Because if you didn't have that little niggle of fear, you would be relaxed. You would be too relaxed, I think. And you would take a whole bunch of shit for granted.
Well, you know, but I think, doesn't that come with the territory of being in this skin? You know, I don't think we, as a people, you know, traditionally we don't relax. We're going 100, 24/7. You know, we're trying to make sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, because you know that's what we do. We know we've got to be better. And we've got to go the extra mile in order to just, appear to be equal in our counterparts' eyes. So that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
Does it make you mad when you find out somebody that they ain't shit, but they want to play the race card, but you know they ain't shit?
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, you know what, that does, because again, it's that is so many layers to that, because it's so many layers to that. Because for one, when you've worked hard and you've been diligent at what you do, you know, when you take advantage of an option that is like that, you know, you push us back 100 years. You push us back. You know, you give a person the credence to say, "See, all lives matter," or, you know, "See, I told you, we don't need affirmative action." It's so many layers to that, and that's why, again, but that goes back to what I was saying with us just having to work harder, because we know, and we're definitely from an era of having to work harder just to be, or appear to be, close to equal, even though the privilege is still there, just because based on the color of skin. So, it takes us way back, and it angers me probably even more than someone else, because again, I know usually in my game, I've worked hard to get to where I'm at and to do the things that I do.
And
What about you?
well, always, I had to try to break this down for someone today, matter of fact.
Mm.
Number one, I feel honored that people recognize that racism is a real thing, and what do you have and what are your thoughts? And if you just assume a bunch of shit about me, you would assume very wrong. And so for you to take the time to ask me questions about how I feel about stuff, I always feel very honored.
Absolutely.
One of the things I never forget where I came from. I don't forget growing up with a crazy ass dad who had PTSD, never treated from Vietnam. I don't forget my mother, whose parents were sharecroppers, and she barely survived on mayonnaise sandwiches. And I know what about tomato and mayonnaise sandwiches. I'm not too far from that. And having outdoor, I'm not very far from that, because we didn't correct that shit until the 80s.
Right.
And I know how very easy it would be to be only 1 or 2 paychecks about being on a bread line. I know what government is. I know what, and most people don't know that. And I know where I came from, and I'm so grateful to be given every opportunity that I actually have. I've worked hard for it. So when I see another person that looks like me minus the fro, you fucking around, I know your ass ain't shit. We the same. We, besides going to different schools, we went through residency, we went through medical school. I understand more so than your black princess ass does, and you fucking this up. You fucking this up for everybody.
For everybody.
Because I know you ain't shit. I know what it is possible. I know what the job requirements are. I know how fast you can actually go. And I know because I have OCD and I've timed your ass. So I know when you go and you know how to turn off the Skype, that you can still stay green, but you've been in the same place for 45 minutes. The reason why I know that, because I timed your ass. You are not fucking up this opportunity.
For the team.
For me, and particularly for me, I honestly think Blue Cross Blue Shield, out of 20 years, is the only place that I've actually worked that is representative of the population that we serve. I've never seen so many of us in positions of power. Our CMO is African American. She's a pediatrician. She's African American. You know, all these C-suite people are African American. My homegirl, HR, I love her to death. She said, if I have to come find you at your desk, we gonna have some problems. Please, she's a VP. I respect this lady. So I'm like, you want me? I've tried twice to be here, to get here, and to be able to work from my house, and you are messing around and not doing stuff. And then you want to pull the race card. That's when I'm like, this is erroneous race card. This person is not, she is not doing right or the well thing for this particular position. It has nothing to do with race. She just lays
Right.
his, he
And
lays
that's
his
at the end of the day, that's the name of the game. And it does happen in your industry, of course, in my industry. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people where I'm, like you said, I'm literally, in my instance, I'm literally doing your job, you know, or making sure that things are done because that's the level, that's the level
Before
of
you go on to that,
support.
basically, can you go ahead and verbalize how we first met? And then we had working together. Holy crap.
Oh my God. So I will, yes, let me let me verbalize this. So I currently work with medical software and training, and I met Felicia at Carolina's healthcare system in Charlotte, and she was onboarding as a new provider, and miraculously enough, on the day that we met, she was the only person that I had to facilitate training for.
Can you imagine, Lauren?
Hell no. Hell no. Oh my God. She was the only person I had to work with that day. And when she came in, this fireball came in with a, you know, I don't really need to know this. I don't know why we're doing this. I don't have but so much time. I had every.
You got 1 hour. I distinctly remember saying that. You have 1 hour. That's what
like,
I'm here for.
Every roadblock that she could put up was what I had to endure. And for some reason, I don't know how we connected, but I said, okay, so if that's what we're doing, let's get down and let's get to it. And
how it ended up, I gave you 1 hour, but I was in your class for 3. What the fuck?
To be fair. But that was because I think two things. I knew that you did not want the extra, you didn't want the fluff, and you didn't want the frills. Right. You wanted, I'm going to tell you what I do, and I think that's where we touch. I'm like, okay, tell me what your role is, what you're going to do, what type of provider you're going to be. And then I can walk you through what you need to do for you. And I think that's what was helpful. And as I engaged you,
I kept asking for more because you kept teaching me all these tricks that I basically was able to use not only in my, because at that time, they were on ambulatory and I was getting ready to work not only as a hospitalist, because I think I hadn't worked out at Shelby at that time. But when I came back and I was working in the pediatric urgent care, which were still on ambulatory, you basically taught me so much. But I was sneaky though, Lawrence, because when I met you, I was either coming off of, or I was just getting ready to go back to work with Clinovations to the install for MedStar. And I didn't have my position at Adventist at that time. So everything that you freaking taught me, I basically was able to not only apply as in my job as a medical provider, it was everything because I was doing, I was Go Live teams for MedStar and for Adventist.
Wow. And Adventist is on the same software.
Yeah. What is even crazier, both Carolinas and Adventist have announced that they're going to Epic. And that's a whole different. That's a whole different conversation. I'm just saying.
It sure is. It really is. And they're moving in that direction. And even, but you know, I think that is a whole different conversation. Because I think that goes with the onset, because I know at that time it was Carolinas, which they're Atrium now, but they invested a lot of money. And it surprises me.
Adventist and Carolinas, the investment was no less than $500 million.
I believe, yes, absolutely. Yeah, because they had the top of the line everything. I want at Carolina's healthcare system, and then I worked with Adventist before too, so I know what they do, and I think because I worked with them in Florida and I worked with them in California, I kind of fell in love with them as an organization because they take care of so many poor and just indigent people in general. You would be shocked. When I worked in Visalia and some of those areas, Hanford, California, which are really poor.
But the Adventist of Florida is not the same. Advent Health of Florida Sunrise is not the same as the Adventists
No.
on the West Coast that's associated with Loyola.
Correct. Actually, from what I've understood, there are 3 separate entities for Adventists.
Yes, there are.
Okay.
There's one that's also in Maryland or the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
like Northeast. There
Mm-hmm.
is the Florida system that
Mm-hmm.
I work for. And then there's the West Coast, that's Loyola, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's a couple of facilities, if they haven't divested from, in Colorado, that's run by Sunbelt, which is actually in Florida.
Oh, wow.
I don't think so, but and they've actually, I don't understand how you can be not for profit and you can be capitalized at $5 billion. That's one of the things I didn't understand about Florida Hospital and Adventist that out of Florida. But they have all of those indigent populations, like my hospitals. At one point, I covered like 9 hospitals between Tennessee, North Carolina, and then I would cover Texas when they lost that medical director. And now most of those hospitals, there was one in northern Georgia, right not too far in Atlanta, that they sold that hospital. But they've also shuttered the facility in Tennessee. They're not there anymore. They shuttered 3 facilities in Tennessee. There's only one in North Carolina. I don't know if they still actually manage that. There's one in Gordon, which is in Calhoun. And I remember when I took the job, they were in the process of shutting the one in North Atlanta down. And that was affiliated with Emory. And I just remember that the more harder that you worked I didn't have a team, but you could just actually do the job, and they were still shutting all the hospitals down, but I still had all this work. And it was just wild. It was just really wild to me.
Oh, no, I can easily believe that, because one of the things that I recall, and particularly out on the West Coast, out in those areas, because was I facilitating training? I remember working with providers, so going into those clinics, and literally, when I say, the people were like on top of each other, just, it was so many people in there to be seen. And then, I'm talking to the provider to see if I can help work with them with the EMR or with the Dragon Medical and things like that. And they're like, he doesn't have time. This provider is seeing this amount. I forgot the number that they gave me of patients that they said this one provider saw per day. And I said, how is that even physically possible? I was like, it's just, if you're seeing this many people, you literally are down to a 3-minute visit per person, if it's within this time frame.
Do you recall if he was a hospitalist or was he one of the primary?
This was a clinic, and it might have been like family medicine or something like that. Okay. But the number of patients he saw per day, it was unreal. It was unreal. And literally when I saw the schedule, I was like, oh, this is real. This is what he does, however he facilitates it, but he sees these people.
In peak season, when I actually had, I was working alongside a really productive mid-level or PA or a nurse practitioner. We could see, and I was hurting 50 patients, 50 to 60. And that's hard because, number one, I would be good for like the first 4 or 5 hours. We worked 12-hour shifts, but it became a point, even with Dragon, it became a point where I would still have to, because you have to put in orders, and then the turner was just clunky and it just slow, or you get kicked out. And I had to read. It was just, I would always be left with a minimum of, even after seeing that many patients, which I thought was good, I would still have to stay or come back early to actually be able to complete about 10 or 15 charts, either at the end of the night or come back the next day. But because I didn't, even when I was working at the urgent care, I still was not able to come back the next day because I had a flight, because I had to fly out to go back to wherever. So it was hard. I do recall. My goal was, you taught me, that to finish your note at the end of that encounter. But sometimes that was not when you had somebody coming in with stress, or they were bleeding out, or they were trying to have a stroke, or they got stabbed by the dad, or they got stabbed by the dad, and you had to call the cops. That's a whole right there.
Right. It's a whole different dynamic.
Yes,
I completely get that. And again, you're not gonna. Of course, you already know that everything. It doesn't work by the playbook always, but if you can get that process done, then amazing, because then you don't have that to do. But you, unlike a lot of other providers, you were able to facilitate most of that work, and even sometimes in the aftermath of that transition, a lot of times they do monitor and look at the data to see who is going home to work and who's not going home to work. And those, sometimes those are your pain points for people you want to work a little more closely with to make sure that it's not a transition.
What is it called? What is it called? That the data, I can't remember.
And that's, I knew, and I can't think of what it's called.
Because there's a certain different where you actually, how many hours after hours that the provider works. That's actually, I can't remember. Yes. It'll come to me because I used it, because that's how I would use to be able to convince people that you really need me to help you navigate the system. So at the end of this encounter, or at the end of your shift, especially as a hospitalist, you could actually go home and not have to work another 3 or 4 hours at the house.
Yeah, because and actually from a hospitalist perspective, you got to remember, you guys are seeing so many different patients, and possibly with so many different variations of illness and conditions and whatever, that has to be a challenge in and of itself to even attempt to keep up with. I can't imagine having an excessive number of cases that you still have to work on at the end of the day and trying to remember who
obsolete. Because it's all obsolete. By the time you write the note, they've gone from being on the floor to their code, and now they're in the ICU. That note is meaningless.
Right. Literally.
And then what I do now, and I get these 4-word notes of somebody that's been in the hospital for 8 days. You know what? You're not fit to try me. You're not talk me to death, because if it's not really, no, I'm not a pro. I say this. I can go to 0 to Ebonics in a minute. I actually took somebody on a piece of I was like, no, baby.
But sometimes it has to be that way, But
the cool thing is, I get to ask them, okay, what system you're on, and if they say Meditech or Cerner or Epic, I can basically say, okay, this is where, if you're in the chart now, navigate to this, click on this, and this is read that what that said, and then they are shocked because they were like, number one, you trying to pay for shit. That's one of the things that they tripping out about. And then I know where to find the information that I'm looking for.
That you're looking for. That's imperative.
And then I also know you bullshit me because I know you didn't document it, because I know you ain't using the template right. So then I know, then don't even try. Don't even fucking try. And I'm not, bro, I ain't paying for that.
Right, but you're right. You're right, though. It's all about knowing where you're going, how to navigate and get the information that you need, because that's going to make you more efficient at the beginning and the end of the day, every day, all day.
And I said, I don't mind talking to you, but I really need you to document this going forward. I just put the note, I wouldn't have talked to you.
Right. So that anyone can see this or access this information.
Exactly.
Let me ask you a question, though, because we're talking about healthcare. What are your thoughts with healthcare for all? Or actually, let's go back to even the current era or our current presidency trying to dismantle healthcare for all, especially within the current state of the nation with a pandemic going on and everyone needing coverage. What are your thoughts?
I'll try to be succinct as possible. And I'm so mad at you that I'm going to have to pay you for basically flipping the interview back on me, the podcaster, but I'm going to let it slide because you're my boy. However, so
you got me this time. Okay.
Obamacare is not Medicare or for all. It is, but it's the closest that we can actually get to having free enterprise, sane system that covers the most amount of Americans, because it's optional. It's optional. I honestly don't think there are people like myself that I actually work for an insurer and my benefits are bought. I'm cool with that. But
Right.
I'm not going to pay extra for Medicare or Medicaid because I don't need that. Because I actually can afford, because I work for the insurer, I can
Right.
afford to basically pay for my health care. Also, pound for pound on the exchanges, even before 2016, if you were able to get the bronze package, which I had for my state, it was so beneficial and it was just so baller coverage. Even with my COVID package when I left in 2016, that I did not give up that coverage until like 2017, right after we met and was on a DOC project. I didn't have to because my coverage previous from the exchange, Obamacare was worth more than what they were actually offering with Holland Square.
Wow.
And
see, that's interesting. That's
that,
fascinating.
exactly. So with that said, and to dismantle, especially trying to still do the same shenanigans in a pandemic, it basically also pulls back the veil that what you are trying to dismantle is what was actually keeping the healthcare system afloat. And don't get it twisted. There's, even with Obamacare, there was still so much health inequities or inequality.
Absolutely.
Because the places like Michigan, especially near Detroit, parts of North Carolina, parts of Tennessee, and even Florida. And the reason why I know this is because I worked as a peds hospitalist. There was still, there were no doctors, or the doctors that were there were on was on visas that they are not even allowed to practice in their own country, let alone here. But they had to have the coverage even to keep the doors open because of regs.
Wow.
Just because you have a doctor, all hospitalists or all contractor hospital or doctors are not created equal. And some of these motherfuckers are very much dangerous. And so and it is proved time and time again the lack of appropriate health care that is still adult and some pediatrics a little bit better, but on the adult side, it is, I cannot get sick. I really cannot get sick.
Can't afford.
I can't. I not even. It's not even can't afford to. It's because
it's the
I
care.
can't afford to get sick because I can't trust anybody. I'm reassured now that just because it's COVID, you still have to take care of your patient. They still got lymphoma. They still have a broken bone. They still survive a crash. You still have to be able to practice medicine in spite of this pandemic. You still have to be able to take care of your patients in spite of, and I don't see that. And that frightens me more than anything.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. And I think the pandemic also, again, it exposed healthcare and a lot of flaws within the system. Just a lot of inequity in the system. And again, I think it brings to mind a national healthcare system, because I think you just raised a very good point, and I didn't think about that because I've had that bronze package, like you said, and I thought it was great. But I didn't think about when you compared it to, well, let me say this, two things. Previously, Holland Square had Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
And then they fucking changed it. Yes.
They did. And that Blue Cross and Blue Shield package was the bronze package that you're talking about. All the bells and whistles, disco lights, and everything else that you wanted. And they changed the coverage to the bare bones, you got nothing coming, zero health plan. And that bronze package that you said definitely rivaled what Holland Square was offering. So,
do you
I mean,
realize how 2 times I've been with 2 different contracting companies that started off with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, because at that time Holland Square was in Brentwood.
Yeah,
and then
it sure was.
United, and they flipped it to United. Do you know how fucking pissed off I was?
Yeah, because I do know, because United's package was horrible. Because I remember, for some reason, that's so vivid to me. I remember looking at it like, this isn't even. Yeah, it's not. It was like,
I
this
gave
isn't
up
even
what? Because, and now y'all giving me not even a 10th of coverage I had with Exchange. Really?
Right.
Really?
Right. You might as well. I mean, it was almost like you're paying out of pocket anyway. What do I need you for? Because that's how bad the package was. But but again, I think it goes back to what we were saying. Some things that need to change. Not only in healthcare, but it's so much right now. We're in the midst of so many different things. Pandemic, a race war. A race war, if you will. And there's so many things and so many moving pieces going on. I think we got to get back to focusing on things individually and then collectively too, because a lot of these things go hand in hand. The racial disparity, healthcare for all of those things touch on, each other. And depending on, especially depending on how you look at it, but all of these things, healthcare, all of these things are hand in hand. Our policing, that's a whole nother component that I don't know, I don't know where to begin and end on that.
Let's do this, if you don't mind. Did I answer your question as far as my feelings on healthcare for all? I think it should be healthcare for people that want it. I'm okay. I stand Obamacare, number one, because it's President Obama. And I was a direct beneficiary of that when I needed
Absolutely.
it. And now that I work for a company, a healthcare or a health insurer, I feel that if I can pay for it and I like my benefits, I don't think I should be forced into that option. I think people that do the right thing, like my company, it's okay for them to stand, but for the United for-profits that don't, you need to go to the woolly mammoths. I don't give a fuck about your $600 million loss, because I know that it's some administrative back bullshit. It has nothing to do with anything, because you didn't use any of that money to take care of your patients, because I know what the packages that I've had. But with that said, there needs to be a fail-safe system that was very much similar to Obamacare. And I think that needs to stand. It needs to be tweaked. And if you can't afford the premium package that I actually have now, you should have other options like Obamacare. I'm all for that. But I think it still needs to be a choice. And I honestly think the bureaucracy that we have now, it's not working. But
definitely. That's not even an option under this current administration. But I think that you did touch on some things that are important, and I think that those are things that are missing, and those are things that easily, arguably, can be addressed and fixed. And because I feel like right now the option to having something versus nothing is one of the concerns, and then actually to have something that you can build on or tweak based on some of the concerns that people have. Because sure, why would I want to give up my Blue Cross Blue Shield that covers, that gives me everything that I need for me or for my family? Why would I want to give that up to have something that is pre-selected that I don't want? That makes sense. So why not create something that is optional? And, if you choose to elect that, then great, then you have something. And if I choose to keep my Blue Cross Blue Shield, I have something and I'm okay with that. That's something that could have been fixed.
Like secondary insurance, like you have everybody, because you pay taxes or whatever, has basic care. But if you have this
Mm-hmm.
catastrophic shit, you have the Blue Cross Blue Shield. I think there's room to have both systems, and not
Right.
have it completely break. For example, but we also got to fix the part of healthcare that could potentially bankrupt the patient. There's a patient in Seattle that survived COVID. His
Mm-hmm.
hospital bill, he had insurance. His hospital bill was $1.5 million. The reason
Oh my God.
is because he was ventilated for almost 6 weeks. He was in ICU for a part of the time. Then he had to go to the floor. Then he transitioned to rehab. The average person that survived COVID, it looks like it takes them 2 months between acute hospitalization. They all have to go to rehab because it just fucks up their body, and then
Mm-hmm.
recovery.
Yeah.
You're looking at about 2 months, 3 months of hospitalization. That tab is no less than $1 million. I think the price tag is crazy. I think the charges, you being charged $5,000 just for the room. It's not the medication. It's not the ventilator. It's nickel and diamond in healthcare. We got to look at the cost structure and how we actually take care of patients. That has to be overhauled too, to make all of it.
To make it make sense.
Is that right along with what you're saying?
No, I think that's fantastic too, to have that perspective, because again, a lot of times people look at healthcare from the perspective of the consumer, and what you're saying is from the perspective of the provider being there and knowing what some of these costs are and how some of those are exorbitant and some of those, like, why are you paying? It's almost like that old government adage, like, why are we paying $200 for a screw? When we've got you know what I mean? When we've got
the
a
$1
whole
billion
bin
toilet. Did you hear about that?
Right.
No, it's not even a bidet. It is
right.
a high flush. And what the hell, Delta? You gave me the Delta. You charged me $1 million for a Delta toilet. We gonna fight.
Yeah. It's the same scenario that you speak of, but a lot of times, again, we don't look at it from that perspective, because even if when we get a bill, we're still not looking at it and itemizing it probably in the same capacity that you are, because when you see that bottom line, that's all you're seeing. It's like, I owe $25,000, or I never get in 2010 or something like that. I went to the hospital. I had pneumonia. I was in the hospital for 3 days, and I think my bill was $24,000. I think that was the most expensive hotel room I've ever been in. $8,000 a day.
Even when I've stayed at the Ritz, I've stayed at the Waldorf in fucking New York City for $800 for one night. I had 5.
I stayed at the Waldorf in Las Vegas recently, but go ahead.
Yeah, that is hysterical. Okay, so for my bill, and this was in North Carolina, I had the same procedure as Condoleezza Rice because I had fibroids at Moses Cone in Greensboro, freaking South Carolina. Them bitches charged my ass $47,000 for 22 hours.
Wow.
I had what they called a uterine artery embolization for fibroids. I finally paid it off. It took 2-3 years, and I was proud to pay it off. It just pushed back the eventual abdominal hysterectomy I was going to need to have anyways, but it's all good. But at the same time, for one, not even a day, it was over. I paid 40 G's. They billed 80 G's.
And see, and imagine that person that fortunately, you were able to facilitate that. But imagine the person that can't pay for that, that's still in pain,
or that is bankrupt because that is either food or etc. So they have to file for bankruptcy or whatever. I was fortunate that I just ramped up, even though 5 days later I got on an airplane and flew to Texas because I was still doing locums at that time. I flew right back to Texas. Don't do that. That was stupid. But I
No,
was
you probably should have been resting.
Yeah, I didn't pay it off, but it did not. I look at a lot of stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? And I could have been bankrupt. I was a crazy bitch. But that's beside the point. A lot of people. A lot
You. Oh my God. But you.
Whatever.
But you know, and I mean, no, but really, like you said, when you look at it, you were able to facilitate that. There are so many people that can't even wrap their mind around where am I going to get $47,000 from? And hell, I definitely didn't have the 80 if I didn't have insurance.
Well, exactly. I felt responsible. That was with insurance. I still had to pay that, and I'm thinking even now when I did have my hysterectomy at Carolinas, I did have a copay, and I had, that's when I was not only see, this is blessing and freedom. I worked for Adventist. I was not only able to, how much did I pay for that? And I actually got that money back recently. I only paid, when I had the surgery, I was actually in the hospital for 2 days. My copay was negligible, and I ended up, for some other reason, I got refunded a large part of what I actually paid down payment for that surgery. But then I got like 6 weeks off for sick pay and just a lot of other things that, being a smart, nerdy girl, I had graded, not only had Aetna at the time, but I also had sick leave. How many people don't have that option? They go into work sick.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it goes back to so many components that still touch on those same things that we're talking about with race, because a lot of those people look like us, or a lot of those people are Hispanic, and those are people that are in some of these industries that you cannot afford to get sick. Can you imagine that?
Sick, but they're going to get sick because they walking around with their uterus looking like mine. It is so deep when your surgeon basically tells you that he took a picture because he said, I've never seen anything quite like this. And you walked around for how long like this?
Right.
But he still call you to make sure you all right, and he can't believe you walked around with this nonsense in your body.
For all this time.
Because
so were you in pain? You had to be in pain too.
In all honesty, it was basically since the start of my period. It's TMI, but I'll tell you anyways. Always a lot of pain, and because I traveled so much as a contractor, it got to the point by the time he did my hysterectomy, I couldn't bend over. Like, I would be in an airplane and I couldn't bend over because I would have a bleed. It would just be puddles. I remember getting my hair done, and I had to pay. I felt bad because I had to pay for this lady's rug because of a constant. Always anemic, always tired. I'm always cranky anyways, but it just made it even worse. And I lived like that for most of my adult life until I had the one procedure. It got better for a couple of years, and it got worse. And then over a year, when the fibroids increased in size, and he basically said, if this was my wife, I would tell her that you need to do this like now. Because I was trying to put it off. I was still trying to put it off.
Of course.
And he was like, girl, you crazy as hell, but no.
Without saying it.
You need to work this out in 3 weeks because I need to take all of this nonsense out.
Right.
But it was but in all honesty, pain and you had life restrictions, and I always had to have an extra either 1 or 2 changes of clothes because of constant bleeding, or I didn't pee straight because my fibroids were too big. I had like 4 or 5 fibroids that were the size of softballs, and so many, it was too many to count, that it basically my uterus was it was not even recognizable because they were all through completely through all the walls. It was through in the uterine cavity, outside of it. It just, well, and I also had ovaries, fibrocystic ovaries, ovarian, polycystic ovaries. I had all that kind of nonsense. So, and even if I wanted to get pregnant, I couldn't, because there was no way with that kind of pathology that I could. And it was cool because I did not want to, pass on these genes to anybody, because I did not want risk. Me being 10 times, can you imagine? Me being 10, my progeny 10 times worse on the world. I couldn't do that. Couldn't live with that. But it was that kind of, it was deep. It was deep.
Yeah. No, and I can only imagine. But again,
but my family members did that without insurance. All these women suffered with the same kind of issues that I suffered with, but they didn't have insurance.
And that's but that's the thing that's kind of frightening now, is that it's still a lot of people that are suffering and that will continue to suffer and don't have a clue like what they're going to do, because they can't afford it, and they can't even wrap their mind around it. Or, or you got a kid that has.
They could, if you could get on the exchange, you could have a chance. I remember the lady that did my nails in Charlotte, and we were talking about, she was having what I now know as TIAs. And I don't think she would have been able to get the help that she could have done if she had waited any longer. Like in this administration, she wouldn't have been able to get the MRIs or the having to get set up out of PCP and get neurology. She wouldn't have had any of that.
Not a chance. Absolutely.
Not even a little bit.
I know. And I think that, again, it goes back to a lot of things. I know today is, it goes back to healthcare, and it goes back to some of the things we're talking about. Today is Juneteenth. And I think it's, it's interesting to me how, in saying that, it's interesting to me how, as much as we celebrate Cinco de Mayo, 4th of July, we don't celebrate our own independence. Does that resonate?
Okay, so I'm gonna have to flip this back on you, Mr. Unpaid Podcaster. Have you
I need to work on that, huh? And this is my first podcast, let me say that, but go ahead.
Have you always celebrated Juneteenth? And when was the first time that you can remember celebrating this holiday?
You know what? I'll tell you, I have not always celebrated, but one of my close friends brought it to my attention. And they would host things. They would host parties and things for Martin Luther King, for his holiday. And they usually would have something for Juneteenth. And that's how I came into the knowledge of Juneteenth. And, it's just, but again, I don't know if it's because in the United States, you have to have a reason for celebration. You got to put some drinks on it. Now we got to create some table. It becomes business. It's always business. So that means we need to sell for Cinco de Mayo. We got to sell a bunch of Mexican drinks. Everybody go to the Mexican restaurant and buy all the Mexican hats. And
okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Cordura, margarita, whatever. However, when was the first time you celebrated Juneteenth? If at all?
It was, that's what I said. It was, usually I was going to the functions that my friend had here in Atlanta. So I would say probably, I don't know, 2 things. And I don't know when we say celebrate, because people take that into a different context. So, right, that's what people mean. Or again, Cinco de Mayo, we celebrate. But the reality of it is, he would do something to honor Juneteenth, and he would usually have some people to speak and things of that nature. So I wouldn't say, we can call it a celebration, but I would like to say it was more of an acknowledgement and just embracing what occurred. And I want to say that I've been doing that, and normally he would have had something again, but probably without this current state of the nation. That's been for a while. I'm going to say at least 10 years.
So if I were to tell you that me and my family have never celebrated Juneteenth, would you be shocked?
No, not at all. Because there are a lot of people that still don't really know. Because let's say this, before I was celebrating, I had heard of it before, but I didn't do any research. I hadn't looked into it. And I think see, and based on your face, that's that's what had happened to.
Yeah. See, what happened to
Felicia. That's what happened to Felicia. But
so
no,
you can ask me.
That's not uncommon.
I find out about Juneteenth. Ask me when I find out about Juneteenth.
When did you find out about Juneteenth?
All right. I did my residency 1997 2000. Going to Potter's house. I can literally say 2012.
Okay.
2012, 2011 is when I found out what actually Juneteenth was.
But again, so the interesting thing that I find, and this doesn't just go back to people that are of our or ethnic origins, but what I find is, I think there's more discussion about it now because of the state of the nation, and I think it is important discussion, and it doesn't. I don't know if. Because when you see celebrate, and that's why I'm choosing my words carefully, and that's why I say acknowledge.
I would say acknowledge, exactly.
Yes.
Acknowledge.
When I say acknowledge, and the reason I say that is because when it comes to celebrations, you go drink all the tequila on which cause some people don't even know what Cinco de Mayo is. They don't know. They still don't know, that it's the independence of.
What is Cinco de Mayo and what is Juneteenth?
Right. So sometimes they don't know that because you've gotten all into this American thing of, oh, I know it's the day that we get drunk and drink tequila and go to a Mexican restaurant. That is literally for some people exactly what it is. And it's lost any connotation of, the celebration of their independence, et cetera, and things like that. Because now, again, it's almost like Super Bowl. We're going to get some appetizers or we're going to the Mexican restaurant and things like that. I hope that, and I think that's why I'm choosing my words with Juneteenth as an acknowledgement and not a celebration. And I'm hoping that it doesn't become that thing that the financial machine that these other things are. I do like the idea of understanding a little bit more about it or learning something on that day or even observing, something on that day. I like the concept of that. I have some friends of mine today who spent money, made sure they patronized more Black business as an observation of Juneteenth. And I would like, those are the concepts that I would like to see associated with this holiday, as opposed to, now let's get some Hennessy and, get some fried chicken and
yeah. So Hennessy, unless you at Crown, which I know is owned by somebody that actually is like Crown chicken, that is not the Crown core.
Okay.
So please shoot me if you can text me your address. You're a coffee drinker. You are a
coffee drinker.
Okay.
I'm not the coffee drinker, but
there is actually a Black and they are a Royal Roaster that I'm wanting to send you. Please let me know about their coffee beans and their product. It's actually in Target. Because I want to actually send you as an appreciation for you basically talking to me. So that is.
You ain't got to do that.
And or if you like rosé, because Lafitte Rosé is almost like my brother. I can hook you up. I got the hook.
Holla if you hear me.
Exactly, but Juneteenth. But do you think that it's now cool people to recognize or acknowledge a holiday, that there were over 200,000 enslaved of us. 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, were still fucking slaving in Texas, of all places. I love Texas. I love Cheryl. But it took 2 years for them to know about
that they
the
were
emancipation, because it took them 2 years for dude to get to Galveston to tell them that they were free. But they've been free for 2 years, but they thought
for 2 years.
A quarter of a million people. That
is
blows my
mind-boggling.
mind. Do you realize
it's mind-boggling?
It is mind-boggling that it took them 2 years? Because that's what I was waiting for all the news people to basically say. Do you realize that June, when he went to Galveston to tell them, they had been already free for 2 years, but they didn't know?
Right. They were working for free for 2 years. Literally. It was
2 years.
For 2 years, and did not have to. It is mind-boggling.
Detroit and Michigan and Georgia and Princess Anne County, we already knew we were free, but our brothers in Texas were still working. And that takes us for 2 more years.
That is absolutely mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling, and then it seems inhumane to me too, because at the same time, in those 2 years, because when we talk about it in that capacity, what we have not said are the reality of people's lives in those 2 years. In those 2 years, how many people were beaten? How many people were killed? How many people were maimed? How many people were raped? How many, you know what I'm saying? All of those statistics and all of those things come along with those 2 years. So when I think in terms of that, I'm just like, that is why it's mind-boggling to me. And, you know, again, if you believe in the higher power, you know that he don't do nothing wrong, but it's mind-boggling to wrap your mind around that fact that you were free for 2 years. And but along with just saying that, you have to also acknowledge to me, you know, what lives were lost in those 2 years, what women were raped in those 2 years, what families were broken up in those 2 years, what kids were sent to somebody else. You know, all of those things have to be acknowledged in that time too. So it is mind-boggling, and to go back from there to even our current state. Because as you said, think of how many years ago that was. And then think of where we're at today. If this does not, when I say this fuckery pisses me off, that pisses me off. To go from, yes, we're talking about Juneteenth, and we're talking about the end of slavery, or the abolishment of slavery, and to be here today where it is okay to take someone's life based on the color of their skin, where it is okay for you to be an officer and shoot at somebody because you're fucking lazy. You don't want to run after them when you signed up for it. It's just like me telling you, well, I work overtime on the interview, and then I'm not available on any Saturdays. That is laziness. It is cowardice, and it's a whole bunch of other things. And I know that our police do a lot. Don't get me wrong. And there's a lot that needs to change, but to be in this current state based on what we're talking about with Juneteenth, that pisses me the fuck off too. It enrages me, literally. Because from there to here, there should have been a lot of growth and expansion. Hell, from Martin Luther King to here, there should have been a lot of growth and expansion. Hell, from President Obama to here, there should have been a lot of growth and expansion. And it has not been. And that pisses me the fuck off. Excuse me.
I really wanted to talk to you because when we originally talked about you being recorded for this, this was right after Mr. Floyd, that snuff film. And then your family came into town, and I was like, oh God, they're gonna blunt that passion.
Yes.
So basically, the last several years have been a shit show. I want to basically, as an African American man because they say, you know, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. We basically get better with age. I confirm. I agree with that. From your time in Detroit, you are in Atlanta, and all the shit that you've seen in your career, from management to trainer, and you survived me, which I think I'm still completely fucked up about. And then from Corona, to Brianna, to Ahmad, to
George.
Mr. Floyd, George, to he got shot. Another man got shot. And these are the people that we got.
Just the other day here in my city, in Cobb County, where a police officer stops these 4 kids and he has his weapon drawn on them. These are 4 teenagers. I don't know if you've seen this.
They don't have that shit. They still wilding out.
This has been like 48 hours ago. 48 hours ago.
Why aren't all of us trying to become expat? And what keeps you in Stone Mountain? What the fuck, Lawrence? What the fuck?
You know what? There's a lot of things to be said about that. And that is a very good question. What keeps you here? What makes you stay here? When you've been abroad, you've been to different places. When hell, I've stayed in hotels and talked to people from Germany that are like, I don't know what the hell is going on in your country. Or my friends from the Bahamas are like, what the hell is going on in your country? Right now.
I have no idea.
Yeah, sometimes I have that has to be my voice too. And no, there is no reason for it, because I can't explain or excuse bad behavior. And the reality of the situation is we've been faced with a lot of bad behavior, negative behavior, whatever you want to call it. I do believe that everyone is entitled to their opinion. Some people do not like Black people simply because they're Black, and that ain't going to change. Some Black people don't like white people just because they're white, and that ain't going to change. Some brown people, our Hispanic brothers, don't like white people because they stole their land from Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles. So there are a lot of dynamics in this melting pot and in this place that we live in. But this is where I am from, and this is where I was brought up at. And I am here to fight for those people that are younger than me, and the people that look like me, and my family members, and the people that I love. So that's one of the things that also keeps me here, because I got a buddy that lives in Tokyo. I've been to Japan to hang out with them, and see what that life is like, and what is the experience like, and how are you, making your headway here, being brown and things like that. So I have some insight. I know Germany is a beautiful place, and people that look like me love to go over there, especially when I talk to our military colleague associates and things like that. So there are some great places where people of different origins and ethnicities are loved and cared for. Canada is a place that I've always known, because growing up in Michigan,
You
in the
fucking
United
cold.
States.
No, I ain't fit to go to Canada. Go ahead, go home.
Canada, but I'm just saying. Next, not Canada. Not Canada.
Not Canada. Even Germany. I speak in Deutsch 5 years. Ain't going to Germany either, but go ahead.
No, okay. So, I'm just giving some of the feedback that I've gotten. Now, I've not been to Germany to say I would live there, but the feedback that I've gotten, people that look like us have enjoyed it, and they've said that 1,000 times. I'd love to go back. A lot of the military personnel that I've met. And again, like I said, I grew up in the United States, but we were across from Canada, living in Michigan. So I got to see, I got to go over there, but I didn't feel the same there as I did here, as far as racism and things like that. I saw a lot of blended and mixed people when I was in Canada. Now, maybe that was only in the areas that, the popular Windsor and the Torontos and the, those areas, largely larger cities and highly populated. Maybe that was just, in those regions. But to answer your question, one of the reasons that I stay here and that I am here, because that would be an option to go overseas and experience something totally different. But I travel overseas and experience that. But I think it's important for me to be here to be a role model for my family, and to share the knowledge that I have for the people in my family that look like me, that are young men and young women, and to educate them still. I could do that from over there, and also provide them with, come on over here and stay. But I think it's important because there's still so much work that needs to be done here. It's so much work, and we're seeing that now, especially under, the current administration. You see the blatant racism. I see white people telling, telling Black people, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this, and who are you, and you can't come in this building. And that's absolutely unacceptable behavior, period. It's unacceptable. Because the only thing you're basing that on is the color of their skin. You don't stop Jim and Dorothy when they're walking in. You don't stop, Sal and Nick. You don't stop them. But you stopping me, and it's only because of the color of my skin. That has to stop. And what is going to change, not only are the videos, because seeing this over and over again desensitizes you. So what's going to really start happening is you're going to see people taking action. So when the Caucasian people are approaching people and saying these negative racist things, you're going to start seeing people have a different approach. They're not going to be as nice.
Amy Cooper, I call her Karen 2.5. The bitch that approached the Harvard brother in New York Birdwatch.
In the Ramble.
What was your reaction to that? What was your reaction to that?
So again, my reaction on so many levels was, my initial reaction was, she used the police as a weapon against the Black man. That was my main thing. And not only did she use the police, she knew exactly what she was doing, and she weaponized her phone and 911 to call the police on a man that was doing nothing to her. That took me back to the days of Emmett Till. That took me back to slavery. That took me back to so many components of our history of dealing with white people, pulling that nasty ass bullshit. That is one of the episodes, that is one of the incidents of where, again, if to be that, and thank God that Harvard graduate was the nice person he is, because
it would have been a whole different scenario if it had been me or it had been
right.
Me. It would have been a
oh my God. Because as soon as she got off that phone, when they got there, they would have had to peel me off of her motherfucking ass, because you just weaponized. Yes, they would have had to peel me off your ass.
Did you know she's sitting there lying? I would have given her something. Have you ever heard? Did your mama ever tell you, now I'm gonna give you something to cry for?
I'm gonna give you something to cry for.
I'm gonna give you something to call the cops for. Throat punch, roundhouse. Oh my God. Oh,
that is what. God. So that enraged me so much, because again, it took me back to everything of history. A Black man looked at me. Now this man is lynched or hung because you said a Black man looked at you. He might have been looking at the dog across the street. Again, you weaponized something.
I thought I was the only one, because when I looked that up, and I remember just reading something about Emmett Till and he was such a kid. And and then looking at him, and I knew he was, because little boys are kind of assholes. But looking at him from his previous picture to him in his casket, I felt, knowing my nephews, it hurt my heart. And I'm like, this bitch, the worst actress award goes to. She's trying to get this man killed.
Yeah,
are you
she
trying
escalated
to get this
as
man
the conversation
killed?
went on. Yeah,
oh my
and that's
God.
the other dynamic, is that you're weaponizing the police against a person who has not done anything to you, and then you really went into this.
He called you out to put your dog
on a leash,
bitch.
On a leash, and I'm a dog owner. So I know I don't leave home without my dog on a leash. I don't go in the garage with the door open without my dog on a leash, because dogs will chase a squirrel, a cat. They'll chase anything moving.
I'm a former dog owner, and Fred and I have almost gotten into fist fights in Charlotte over my dog Fred. I had two dogs. I had Trudy and I had Fred. But it was that little black dog with the white apron that I almost got in a fight over my dog. I can't even imagine. But with that said, she was choking her dog, and she almost got this black man killed for him calling her out or her bullshit. That is
for not putting her dog on a leash.
Freak off. That pissed me off.
That is a prime example of your white ass privilege, because you thought that just because this man said something to you about your dog being on a leash, not only did you curse him out, but then you turned around to weaponize the police against him,
and you were
played
lying.
a victim.
doing a bad job of it.
Yes, yes. And you played victim and you kept escalating, because that was the thing that really shook me with her. Because as she stayed on that phone call, she really escalated that, her tone with the operator and the whole nine. And had that man not had the wherewithal to videotape that, we could be having a whole different discussion today. It could be a whole different discussion today had he not had the wherewithal to videotape that conversation.
And it would have killed me that it would have been another black man's snuff film. You know,
yeah,
that would have been what, honestly, I was like, how dare you? And she also, what pissed me off, more so than the dog, because I was more pissed off with the dog, but more so that she was a bad actress and she was going to lead. That was the other part that really, really bitched me out. How did she know? Do they take, what I ask myself is, do they put these white bitches through a class that tells them how to basically lie on us and you won't be believed? That is the thing. They have if I was calling, they would have taken a little bit more time. But she really thought that she was going to believe that she put in a big black man.
Privilege. That is your privilege. That's privilege.
That's
privilege. That is, and again, it was so privileged that my white voice over the phone speaking to an operator is going to get the police here to this area of the Ramble, where they think that you are attacking me and I'm lying on it.
She knew. How did she know what to say to get the police there sooner?
Because that's not the first time. I cannot believe at her age that's the first time that you've done that. That's the first thing. And the second thing.
Oh my God, she's done this shit before.
She's done this before. Yeah. How else would you? That's not even learned behavior. You've done this before. You have done this before, and not only that. Again, it goes back to what we talked about with privilege, but it goes back to, you had the wherewithal to think that just because this man said something to you about having your dog on a leash, that not only were you irate, not only did you curse, not only did you almost hang your dog, but you also escalated this to a point where this man could lose his life if the police were to show up there, simply because he's black. All of that.
She didn't care.
And she didn't care until she lost her job, lost her dog, and now she wanted to make an apology and say she's not racist. Well, no, everything that you did in that fucking video was racist. So you can make an apology all day, all night, and all next week. But I'm gonna scratch my nose with this finger, because that's exactly how I feel about you. Okay? There is no, you can't unturn that corner.
You bougie. You like, okay, how can I, basically invest in Franklin Bull Templeton, because they not believing the bullshit. They call her ass out. We're not only are we not racist, we don't believe her bullshit. She fired. Bye, bitch.
Right.
Bye.
Right. There are no three ways about that. It's no three ways about that. Everything you did on that day was racist as hell, and you lied on him.
She lied. And she didn't care.
Blatantly lied.
She went to those crocodile Karen tears.
She sure did.
She did not care that her basically escalation of him calling out could have ended his life. That is the bottom line of that. She did not know. I think she knew, but she did not care that her NYPD on that man erroneously could have been that they would have rolled that Harvard graduate, and it could have ended his life.
It could have ended his life.
Did not care.
She gave zero. Okay, zero fucks. And so, that's a page with me you can't unturn. So as far as her making an apology and all that bullshit, that's exactly what that is. You are what you are, and you are who you are.
She is on the wrong side of history, and she has basically doubled down on that bullshit. That's
absolutely
good, and we don't believe you. That half-assed
And it goes
apology without you even acknowledging that you had the same last name, it's a wrap.
right,
You don't
right.
care.
Now I thought that was how ironic was that you both have the same last name, and I mean that's even scary too. If even as a common denominator of some sense of similarity or a level of just not disparity, but just a level of sameness, or just a similarity. Even on that level, you still there's no compassion. There was no compassion for you for one human to another, for you to do the bullshit that you did that day. And just on that, from one human being standpoint, no, that's a page you cannot unturn. And the shit that you did was racist. You are a racist motherfucker, and you need to wear that label until you learn to do better. Now, if you are taking some steps and working on doing something to be a better person and learn a little bit more about racism and the racist shit that you did that day, then God bless you. But right now, you are back to zero.
So I got two that I basically, my favorite podcast is The Read. I got several podcasts, but I found out that did you ever watch Glee?
I've seen it a couple of times.
Leah Michelle is one of the main characters. I kind of hated her voice. I thought the black girl Amber was better, but her publicist basically posted something about in support of George Floyd and isolated, blah blah blah. It didn't seem like her. So the black girl came back and she said, she started the post with LMAO. Multiple exclamation point. You the same bitch that threatened to kick in my wig. So with that, and the reason why I bring that up is you got to be really cognizant of who basically are trying to be your allies, because there's some people that are like Leah Michelle. There's always some kind of scarcity about her. I didn't really like her. That's just me. And after that particular post, there's so many people that have come after her that have subsequently dragged her about how horrible she was on set, and how dare you basically post up because your publicist said you need to do this. But the reason why I bring that up is because, why did I actually bring that up? It's because, is it really okay now? It seems like it's fashionable now to be not a racist when you should have already lived in this form. What is it about now that makes it, why is it cool not to be a racist now when you should have always not been a racist? What is that?
You know what is that? That is right now, that is currently what's trending. And a lot of our young people go on everything that is trending. A lot of our young people, they're and I don't want to sound offensive, but their minds work like that. Whereas I take time to look at a situation like the Central Park situation, and I'm thinking in terms of, wow, look at this situation.
The Central Park 5.
No, the Central Park Coopers, the two Coopers. And I'm thinking of terms of how this situation of a white woman calling the police on a black man reflects that of the history and blah, blah. It's a little bit deeper for me because I think in that.
But that's the only time that we've actually caught it on tape. But how many men have been falsely accused the same shit?
Absolutely. But again, I think our young people are too quick. I'm sorry, they see things in snippets. What is Twitter? 2 minutes and 20 seconds, you're done. What do you look at on Facebook? Everything is really quick. So for this matter to right now be trending, it has everyone's attention. Now, in 10 weeks, will it still be trending? That is a question that remains to be seen. But a lot of our country works and operates on snippets. And that's why people don't pay attention to things that have happened. They're not focused on, the history of what really occurred. They just saw the last snippet. So that's why your president can say Obama was the worst president in the history of the United States, because that's a snippet. Nobody did any research. Oh, he said it must be true. That's why those things can happen, but no one is taking the time to find out if they're true. people look at a story on Facebook. Oh, this is what happened. It's believable. We're done. You haven't taken any step to do anything to find out for yourself if it's accurate or anything like that. I personally don't believe everything that I see on Facebook. But why is it trending and why is it popular? Because right now it is trending. And of course, people want to be on the side of trending things and they want to be in the loop. Now, the one thing that I will say, and I've got to wrap this up, but one thing that I wanted to say to you was, since you brought that up, if I can find it, because I talked to you about the clip that I made on my Facebook today in regards to what is currently going on. And if I can find it, I'm just going to read the words, because I think it was, oh, that failed to post. You learn something every day. So I think it was important. It was definitely important to me, and it moved me when I saw it. Oh, you know what? I don't have to do that. I forgot I recorded it separately. So let's see if I can find that. And here it is. Give me 1 second here.
I'm not mad at you for your camo OtterBox for your
but look, this Joker still looks new. So the verbiage that shows up, if I can see this, I don't know if I can show it, or it says here. Okay. The verbiage that's associated with this, it shows Black skin. Where are we to go? How are we to respond when we are shown over and over and over that our lives do not matter? Our lives matter. Being white in America is not needing to state your life matters. And when your life matters, you have power. Now is the time to use it. Not being racist is not enough. Now is the time to be anti-racist. Words and feelings are not enough. Now is the time to take action. Read, listen, donate, plan, march, vote, speak out, step in, step up. How you use your power is a choice. Choose action over observation. Choose progress over perfection. That was a commercial that I witnessed, and I was moved by it. So
that is what I would have saw in the post that I actually went to the page. Okay.
Yes, if I wasn't technically inadequate.
So with that, sir, I am as always, I'm completely overwhelmed. I don't understand why I have friends that are just baller and are just amazing. But I'm just completely flummoxed. That y'all will still talk to my evil ass.
That's because you're not evil. I know who you is. Who you is.
Oh, Jesus wept. You just don't know. So I am going to stop this recording because I hate to I don't want my tears to be reported online.
They're gonna know you're human. See, she's not the evil person she says.
Just shut up. I am. I just don't want people to know that I'm not as hard as I portray. You just trying to blast that. So that'll do it for this episode of TNFro is Reading. I have enjoyed, and I completely enjoyed, speaking with my friend Lawrence and everybody else that allowed me the opportunity to discuss the issues of the day with them. It's more than books, it's more than reading. It's about making connections or reconnecting with friends, and just being completely in awe and in honor of all the cool people that I get to interact with, and I can call my friend. And it just brings to mind about upcoming episodes where I get to share the beauty of the world, the beauty of books or TV shows with them, and we can all just have a great time. Isn't that that's what it's all about? I hope you will join me in any upcoming episodes. Please leave me a comment at the end of the podcast on Podbean, Spotify, Apple iTunes, or wherever you listen to the podcast. Or shoot me a non-trolley email at thenceforward@gmail.com. And again, if it's not too trolly, I may actually read it on this episode. And I hope to see you join me soon. Thanks. Have a great evening.